So the United States has spent the past 60 years trying to destroy the Cuban government, from the Bay of Pigs invasion to non-stop economic warfare and blockade, countless assassination plots, releasing invasive pests into Cuban crops to destroy the island's food production, to endless diplomatic, legislative hostility and decades of anti-Cuban propaganda. And now, finally, cutting the entire nation off from the oil the United States just stole from Venezuela. But what exactly has Cuba done to the United States to deserve this fate? Well, the Western narrative around the Cuban government paints them as this brutal socialist dictatorship that just hates and starves its people and destroys its own economy and society because they're just evil communists and that's what they do, right? But have you ever noticed that when US politicians talk about Cuba, they never mention any specific policies they disagree with? It's just broad strokes about communism being evil. So let's have a look at what horrible policies these brutal communists have been forcing onto the Cuban people. After Castro and the communists kicked out the brutal US-backed Batista regime, they introduced the National Literacy Program that brought Cuba's literacy rate up to 99%. For reference, the US literacy rate is 79%. Then introduced universal healthcare and allocated a huge budget to hospitals and medical training, which gave Cuba the highest number of doctors per capita and one of the most advanced medical research industries in the entire world. Education was made mandatory and free at all levels, from kindergarten to university, which produced one of the most educated populations in the entire world. They also started countless micro-social programs like replacing every light with energy-efficient light bulbs. They started a child breakfast program to make sure every single kid was fed before school, and they distributed cookers to every single household for free. All of this is absolutely barbaric, according to the country that has 800 military bases around the world and has bombed another country every single day of this century. And Cuba did all of this while being endlessly attacked by the United States. The real reason the United States hates Cuba is because the Cuban government actually cares about its people and its society, and its entire being is focused towards improving their lives. And that is a huge threat to the image the United States projects to the world that capitalism is the only way forward. And it's why it is so important to the United States that you hate Cuba. The reality is socialism's success in Cuba is a threat to the US empire. It proves that socialism not only works for the vast majority of people in society, but actually works better than capitalism. And that is why the US is so intent on destroying it. Because if Cuba can have all of this success in the shadow of the empire while facing crippling sanctions for 60 years, well, just imagine what they could achieve if they were actually free of US sabotage, aggression, and violence that's constantly trying to destroy them. Anyway, something to think about.